I'm sorry?
That other little structure underground?
Oh, this is the mushroom house. It stays. We are keeping that as a part of the plan. So the new retaining wall ties into the mushroom house. It's a part of the historic nature of the
Okay.
property. So we're gonna keep that, maybe become a playhouse or something like that. So in order to show you what we're planning on doing for the carriage house here, you can see we have a carriage house structure here that was previously approved by the board and has been approved by historic, and that's the rectangular structure here. And what we're adding is an indoor therapy pool on the back of that, and then a service stair to get down to the basement area. This is a year-round therapy use for the new owners. And the rest of the carriage house is really a garage area, kitchen and entry, and kind of a game room seating area. And upstairs is 2 bedrooms and a sitting room. It's pretty much the same number of rooms that were there originally. Originally it was 3 bedrooms, we have 2 bedrooms now. But it's gonna be a family and entertaining space for the property. And you can see that the main carriage house itself is 2 stories with the roof and the basement underneath. And then behind it is the 1-story therapy pool, and it has a slate roof with a glass cupola on top for partial light. So we're building the new therapy pool to be kind of similar to the image of the pool house that we presented to you, I think it was 2.5 years ago. And so you can see, here's the front facade of the carriage house. You can see the line of where the chimney's removed and the 2-story roof is just continued in the same fashion. You can see the same thing on the back there as well. And here you can see the 1-story and the glass roof of the therapy pool enclosure there. It's going to be built with the same materials as the existing house. It's going to have a stone base. It's going to have stucco piers. It will have wood windows, or glass windows to match the existing house there. It will have a slate roof, the same as the main house, and it will have a glass cupola, the same as the pool house. And then you can see here from the side, when you're looking, the reason I wanted to show you that photograph, number 7 that was in your package, kind of shows the view to the back where the carriage house sits, where the pool house sits right here next to it, the therapy pool. So you can see right here the 2-story carriage house, and you can see the 1-story that aligns with the wood trim at the top of the stone, and then the new slate roof here. So that's what we're planning in terms of architecturally for the carriage house, and what it looks like in its new incarnation. So in terms of our variances then for the carriage house, it requires 4 of the 5 variances that we're asking for. The first is the side yard setback variance between it and the existing house, which is an internal variance only to this property. The second one is the rear yard setback variance, which it's currently at 38 feet, and it's going to be reduced to 28 feet. Rich is going to go over all the exact numbers for you. And then we also have the rear yard setback,
Rear yard unoccupied.
rear yard unoccupied, thank you. Unoccupied variance. And then the last one for the immediate area adjacent to the carriage house is going to be the steep slope variance for us to rebuild that retaining wall behind the carriage house, which is going to hold up that slope, and we're going to put our own internal drainage in there. But again, that slopes down to the carriage house as opposed to providing runoff away towards the neighbors. So in this case, the intent of the steep slope ordinance is to prevent runoff to neighbors, and this is totally internal to our own property, and we're going to control that as well. We have a plan for that. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the front entry gate design and rebuilding the gate post and shoring it up. And Brian's going to speak to that and show you the elevation drawings But from a plan point of view, I want to show you that it occurs at the front of the house here on Mini Sink. And that what we're doing is we're going to be rebuilding the gate posts at their current location. And we are going to be disassembling the existing gate post and using the new stone for the rebuilt gate posts as well, and embellishing that with a little bit of additional stone. The issue is that there are no foundations under it, and they're listing, and we're just gonna make them good for the next 100 years. And the other thing that I think is important about this from a site point of view is that the gates themselves are not gonna be attached to the post, but they're gonna be recessed about 24 feet back from the street. And in that way, it minimizes the gates themselves, but it also allows a car to pull off the roadway and then to have access in and out of the property, as opposed to providing blockage on the street while you're waiting to get in. So Brian, why don't you, Brian's gonna come and talk about the gate posts, and then Rich is gonna give you a summary of the variances and the clearances to the adjacent neighbors, and then I guess we'll ask for any questions unless you wanna do it individually.
I think we should wait.
Hear everything first.
Ask questions
Yeah, great.
at the end. Right, we want you to qualify yourself as an expert.
Okay, so my name's Brian Hirsch, I'm a landscape architect, I've been practicing professionally for 15 years. I went to school at Cornell University and studied landscape architecture, and I'm currently licensed in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and California.
Your licenses are in good standing, are they?
They're in the same place.
You will be accepted as an expert in landscape architecture.
Wonderful. So what I wanted to do is, this is just a closer detailed plan of the 20 scale plan that we were looking for. This is an 8 scale plan, and this focuses on the front of the property. This shows the entrance gate area in a little greater.
Well, wait a
detail.
minute, before you get into detail. Are we going to mark that as an exhibit?
That's in your
It should
package.
be in the package.
This 8 scale?
Everything I'm presenting was presented.
Okay,
to the
so,
board.
does it have a sheet number on it, or
It's L2.
L2? Okay. So that's just a colored rendering, a colored version of what we have in our package. Okay.
Could you maybe prop it up on the?
I'm sorry.
Do you want me to do that?
Yeah, that's
I can look at it.
That's fine.
All right.
So we-
So,
Steve, was that okay if you
Yeah,
rest it
just
down?
up on the.
Oh, sure.
Just rest it on the seat.
alright. So the reason I'm talking about this closer is that you can understand what we're talking about when John was saying that we're pushing the gates back 24 feet from the roadway itself. It allows a car to pull in from both directions and be safely off of the active roadway. It also gives prominence to the actual stone piers that are already there. And what we're trying to do in the details of the gate, which we reviewed with historic, are trying to capture the timber and truss and mahogany details that are being presented on the house itself and bringing those details out to the gates themselves. So I think you guys have this drawing as well, which this is D17, which shows the actual entrance gates before and existing and proposed.
Was that part of our package?
Yes,
Yes.
D17 is
Yeah.
part of the package.
So the top elevation shows the gates as they, sorry, the stone piers as they exist today, with the 2 lanterns on the top, and the stone detailing, which is rather beautiful. And so part of what we talked about with historic, which was important, was preserving all of the stones that we can on the front facade. The unique character of some of these radius stones in particular and the coping. So what we're gonna do is create an index and a catalog of the stones, number them, set them aside and reuse those. And as much as possible in rebuilding the piers, use the old stone with the old face and the old patina towards the front of the road. What I'm showing here in the rendering down below is the entrance gate proposed, which is set back like we talked about. And I'm showing some of the plant material here because these are the actual size and shape of the plants as they would go in day one, and obviously they get bigger from there. So the first 3 to 4 feet of the gates the piers are already taken up with planting. So we still want to be able to see them, which is why these nice radius stones will be sitting up there. We're keeping, hopefully, the lanterns on the top. And then this shows the style of the entrance gate, which we feel, starts to, I think I did include this as well, which starts to show some of the historic details that are on the house. If you want to refer to them, it talks about, the mortise and tenon, and some of the Tudor style carpentry.
Just want to say, in terms of the variance for this, the gates themselves are 6'6" high, and the top of the gate post is 9 feet. It's exactly as enumerated on the
So
drawings.
that's what I thought was a little confusing, because the gate is 24 feet back from the post?
Well, the post is back from the road approximately half that distance, and
Okay.
the gate is the other part. So the fence connects from the back of the post to where the gates are.
Okay, because the relation of the height of the gate seems quite high relative to the post, given it's 12 feet behind it, but it's just an observation.
Well, when you look at something further behind, it actually goes down.
That's what I mean,
Yeah.
if the gate
that's
looks
an
higher
elevation.
than I thought it would.
Well, we're drawing in perfect elevation. This
Perspective.
this is not a perspective,
Okay.
right? So,
Everything's the same scale.
and it also brings it up like it's in the foreground as
That's
well, I
right.
suppose,
Okay.
right,
Thank you.
right.
Thank you.
And like you mentioned, the scale of these piers is monumental existing, and so the gates, by comparison, are going to be small,
Yeah.
no matter what we put there.
Thank you.
So that was, basically what I want to talk about in terms of the details on the front. I think on the house, we've done, I think, a beautiful job of matching the stonework. So the masonry we're using, I have every confidence that once these are taken apart, we have existing plantings already that are close enough to these piers that need to be tied back up again when we do this excavation work. But like John said, we hope that that shores up these piers for the next 100 years. They become the same signature they are of the whole property. We want to keep that. Would you like me to talk about some of the, I guess one thing I want to talk about for the pool area, which I think John mentioned as well, is that the high point of the property is located right here. This is the highest point of the whole property, right here. The lowest point of the property is here. So this is a rather substantial knoll up top here, and we've already done some substantial planting on the property. We've planted about 140 evergreen trees, and all of them are over 20 feet in height. Some of them are 35 feet. So a lot of those larger plantings are towards the road, but each one of these trees that you see colored is a new tree. None of the existing trees are shown on this plan.
How many was it, 100 and
There's
what?
140 so far. And the reason why I'm mentioning that is obviously this area with the, I think it's 12 feet of topography, this sunken down 6 feet, and these are true 35-foot trees here. There is a beautiful, evergreen perimeter that makes this area very much invisible from all the neighbors. And I think what John also mentioned is that this is situated down low in a hollow, which, not only is it not visible from the road, not from the neighbors, but it does fit nicely into that area down below that's on the slope. I think, yeah, I think that's it for me.
Richard Keller, I'm a licensed professional engineer and planner in the state of New Jersey, licensed as an engineer in 1989, as a planner in 1990. I hold a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from Rutgers University with a concentration in water resources and environmental engineering. And I also hold a master's degree in architecture with a concentration in urban planning and design, and that is from the New Jersey Institute of Technology, where I was also an adjunct professor for about 11 years, both undergraduate and graduate division. I have appeared before approximately 100 boards throughout the state of New Jersey as both engineer and planner. I've appeared before this board and the planning board regularly, and my licenses are in good effect.
You're appearing tonight in what capacity?
As both an engineer and planner.
Your qualifications are accepted.
Thank you.
No good place to put these, and since the neighbors are here, I'll try to use these up there.
I know you've been a little oriented already with the site. This is the site variance plan that's part of your application package. Just to be clear, Lot 5 is the lot on the top of the page, the north part that contains the carriage house. That is 68 Minising, and the other property is the larger of the two. lot 5 being at just over an acre, 1.02 acres, and the lot containing the main house and the pool and the cabana that John referred to is known as 66 Minnesink, and that is, 68 Minnesink, 66 Minnesink, and that is 1.95 acres. It's 84,893 square feet. So the property in aggregate is just under 3 acres. As was indicated, they've always acted as a pair, with one being the primary residence and the other being a carriage house or a guest house. But the reality is they really have always functioned as one. So they're 2 separate properties with 2 principal structures, with a driveway that comes down and crosses over that line. It's a unique property within the community. I'm not going to repeat a lot of the variance information that was said. Just wanted to reiterate, the property, both of the houses as the existing houses, are approximately 275 feet back from the street. They have extreme setbacks, which places them in relative close proximity to the rear property lines, which means, especially when we're talking about tax lot 5, which is 68 Minnesink, that one has a rear yard setback that is, or a placement that is almost at the back of the property. But as indicated in previous testimony, it sits within, it's nestled within a dell back there. Obviously, when they built this house, the carriage house, to create a level pad, they steepened up the slopes on the northern side, heading up to that high point that Brian referred to. So these steep slopes on the north side of the carriage house are artificially created, and they were created to create a level building pad for that carriage house. Obviously, as we look to now pick up that carriage house and move it 8 feet to the north, we're now pushing into the steep slopes that were created when they built that property. But the basic character is that it's still going to set within that dell, within that little low point, and the addition with the therapy pool is going to go into an existing niche within that carved out section. Just to highlight that, I also have a handout.
A1.
This exhibit is an aerial photo exhibit. Yep, it's taken from nearmap.com. It's a composite image of the existing development with the surrounding neighborhood with the tax map superimposed up over the top of it. The date of the image composites from April of 2017 and March of 2019. I couldn't get clear portions of the site on both dates, so we did a composite image. And basically what this seeks to show is that the existing house, the existing carriage house, sits at within this little amphitheater created by the contours. The closest part of the structure to the closest part of the nearest residence at 70 Minnesink is actually 218 feet. And the closest part of the proposed carriage house with the addition to property at 70 Slope Drive is in excess of 162 feet away. And the contours that are superimposed on there show that, and we're at a different grade plane, different datum than our grading plan, but relative to the grades taken from the township aerial surveys, the first floor of the carriage house is approximately elevation 371. And so you can see the grades come up to an elevation of 389 feet above the first floor of the carriage house, and they drop precipitously down to about 358 feet. So there's a drop of about 30 feet as you drop into the property at 70 Slope, and you go up, as Brian indicated, from 371, you go up to a high of 388. So that high knoll up there really means that this addition and the relocation of the carriage house cannot be seen or perceived by any of the neighbors, and that's before Brian adds in the 20-foot evergreens that have put on the property line. So the area of that 8-foot shift, as well as the therapy pool that was added to the back, will have absolutely no impact on the public at all. The part of the reason for that shift, as was indicated by the team is that when we, obviously, if we didn't have failing foundations, we wouldn't have done it, but it was fortuitous in a sense because the existing home and the carriage house are in close proximity. We're renovating an existing home on 66 Menasink, the large main house. We're keeping that first floor. When we had to provide a compliant garage height underneath it, we lowered the ground elevation by about 2 feet to make that work. So when we lowered that elevation to make the primary residence work, it meant we now had an increased slope to get down the driveway to turn into the garages below. And so with that increased steepness and a tight curve, it was actually somewhat unsafe. Cars would actually have to come around the far side of the driveway and then probably do a multi-point turn to get in. By moving that carriage house 8 feet, we kept it within that low dell portion, that low sunken portion, but we're able to free up a little bit of room so we can get a more soft grade, so that as a driver turns down and goes into the main house, the slope has been softened. And we also have a little better turning radius getting into that area. So the fact that the foundations were non-existent was an opportunity to make lemonade out of lemons. We're lifting it anyways. It's relatively easy to slide it over 8 feet. 8 feet was determined to be enough to do a couple things. One is it allowed for that better turning. It also it allowed us to, because we're pushing it away, it allows the front of the house to move about 7 feet closer to the street, which freed up a little more backyard, which means the impact of putting the therapy spa in the back was not as large. So it was an opportunity to really better the application. The application, as John indicated, does need 5 principal variances. The first, as John indicated, was that technical variance to that internal property line, in which case we currently have an offset to the first and second floor of 9.94 feet. That is going up to 16.93 feet. So at the second floor level, we're required to have 25. We're going from 9.94 up to 16.93. It's an improvement, but it still requires variance relief, and that was also approved in the May 2017 application. The second variance we need is for the rear setback, and the third one we need is for the rear yard unoccupied. Again, both of these are created by the fact that the existing carriage house is approximately 275 feet back from the front street line on a property that's 343 feet deep. So when you're biased so far to the back and your required rear yard setback is a function of your lot depth and you have a deep lot, you get an excessive requirement and you have a house that's all the way at the back. So really there's a hardship created by the location of the lawfully existing structure when trying to add anything onto this and not exacerbating the issues relating to rear yard setback and rear yard unoccupied. To just quantify those numbers, the existing building is at 38.91 feet, which is 11.34% of lot depth, where 20% is required, or 68 feet. The proposed rear setback to the therapy spa section, which is the one-story section, is 28.32 feet, which is 8.25% of the lot depth. The rear yard unoccupied, again, the requirement is that behind the house, you have to have 25% of the total lot area and it has to have nothing in it. So obviously that's a metric that's unique to Millburn, but it's the one that we can't possibly ever meet, and almost anything we do is going to exacerbate that variance request. Currently, 25% of the lot area of this 1.02 acre site is required to be in the backyard. We only have 3,038 square feet, which is 6.68%. We're going down to 5.45%, which is 2,414. So again, the numbers look kind of scary, but that's only because we're so far back on the property. When you look at the actual amount of building coverage on this site, building coverage where 13% is permitted, we're only at 4.93, and that's with the addition. So it's a 2,182 square foot footprint. It's very small on the property. It's just because the existing historic structure is so far back, it necessitates variance relief. And again, I think although with regard to this variance, although the oversized lot depth and the deep setbacks result in pre-existing non-conforming rear yard setback and rear yard unoccupied conditions, but the proposed and while the proposed improvements do further diminish the rear yard setback and rear yard unoccupied, The increase in the deviations are modest, and they do not result in any negative impact on the neighboring properties whatsoever. The fourth variance we need is for the fence on 66 Minisink, and the gates are obviously on the property at Lot 4, which is 66 Minisink. As indicated, these are existing piers that will be painstakingly rebuilt in place. They currently violate zoning in terms of height, and they'll continue to do so once they're rebuilt. And then to provide security, as indicated, 24 feet back, the fence will be turned 24 feet back from that, will be set the rather attractive Tudor-style gates. But all of that requires variance relief because we're not allowed to have fences in the front yard in the R3 zone. The height of the fence at the entry, as indicated, for logistical reasons, is 6'6" in height. The piers are 11'2½". And then we also do have a fence that sits considerably farther back on the property. We have an issue with a lot of gardens that cover a lot of topography throughout the site, and we have an exposure in trying to create a code-compliant fence around the pool, and there's really no way to do it in the lower quadrant of the property. So we're seeking to come off one of the corners at the midpoint beyond the front facade of the house and come off with a fence that will meander over and create an enclosure around the pool, but it's technically in the front yard. That fence height is proposed at 4'6", and that is again only on the lot number 4, which is 66. And then finally, we need a steep slope disturbance. The steep slopes, we got a steep slope disturbance variance for all of the previously disturbed slopes were on the 66 site. Now we need them for the 68 site. The total amount of disturbance is 1,647 square feet, where 1,000 is permitted, so we are disturbing an excess 647 square feet. That 640 square feet, 7 square feet represents 1.5% of the total lot area. So it's a fairly de minimis number. Again, keep in mind that our ordinance allows for 1,000 square feet of disturbance, whether it's a 6,000 square foot lot or a 1 acre lot such as this one. The important thing, as John indicated, we're disturbing those slopes to an internal drainage system. So any of the disturbance is not going to adversely impact any of the drainage onto any of the neighbors. It's all acting within, and we have a significant drainage system that's been partially installed and will be installed on this property to manage drainage and get it out to the surrounding storm sewer, including extending storm sewers where they don't exist. So there's a relatively rigorous drainage plan, which all of this is internal to. None of it will adversely affect the neighbors. Those are the variances requested. These can all be approved under as both C1 and C2 variances, where either the C1, the existing slopes, or the location of the lawfully existing dwellings, or the unusual shape of the lots results in a practical difficulty and a hardship in making any modifications to that house without the need for variance relief. Under C2 is when we create a better condition or a better planning alternative as a result of the changes, and the benefits outweigh the detriments. Obviously, for both of the, and I think I've explained as I went along whether each one was a C1 or C2 variance. For both, we obviously need to demonstrate, and furthermore, when we do C2, we must demonstrate that some of the purposes of the Land Use Act are advanced. Those advanced our safety by creating a more gentle approach and more safe approach into the garage. It also promotes adequate air, light, and open space through that subtle separation of the two buildings. It provides, overall, the project promotes a desirable visual environment. All of the changes are aesthetically in keeping with the house, as was evidenced by the HPC approval. And finally, of course, we're promoting the conservation of historic structures. Preservation of historic structures to this degree are a labor of love. They don't make any sense, but everything that's been done on the site has been done to preserve the integrity and character of this significant, or what the Historic Survey called an outstanding representative of an historic structure within the community, not just a designated site. The location, there are no negative impacts with regard to the negative criteria. There's no detriment to the public good. The proposal was unanimously approved by the HPC. The location, topography, and landscaping limit any visibility from any neighbor. Basically, none of the changes here can be seen or perceived from any of the neighbors. We think that this is an opportunity to really deal with site issues that came up since the May 2017 approval. We've responded to them in a manner that's consistent with historic preservation. We've tried to minimize the extent of the variances where we could. We think we've done a lot with the landscaping and drainage to mitigate any negative impacts. We ask that you approve all the variances requested.
Any questions from board members of this witness?
I have a question.
Yep.
No.
Mr. Keller, can you speak for the record to the need for the front yard fence?
There are two front yard fences.
Well, the one with the gate.
The gates. Yeah, I think, well, two things. One is, there's a significant amount, if you look through some of the landscape plans that you've been presented with, there is a significant amount of landscape improvement. All of these, all of the landscaping that's been provided throughout. There is a deer fence that comes across and meets at the front with a large cattle grate. Cattle grate is not the most attractive piece of architecture in the town. It's about a 6-foot deep cattle grate by the full width of the driveway. That's one way to keep the deer out. The other way is to continue a fence around the front. And the second need for that is really for security, to provide for a secure entrance and a secure way of knowing who's coming on the property at any given point. That will create the final enclosure of the entire property. We're using existing deer fences that have been on the property for years. Where our deer fences went over the line, we've actually pulled them back onto the property line in slight areas for small repairs. But essentially, the property has always had a fence around its entirety. We're looking to get rid of the cattle gate, provide an attractive fence that's in character to the neighborhood, set back 24 feet so when you're driving, it will not be seen. But what you'll see is the gates. The landscaping, generous landscaping will hide the fencing that comes back to a large degree. It isn't until you stop right in front of your turn in that you perceive the gates at the back. So I think that for both security and the replacement of the cattle grates, I think it's I think that that establishes the need for it, and I think it's certainly better than the current alternative. It's an improvement to the aesthetics and an improvement of a significant investment in the landscape to help buffer this from the adjoining properties.
Thank you.
Any other questions from board members of this witness? Any questions from members of the audience of any of the witnesses? If you have a question, you must come up to the microphone, state your name and your address.
Okay, my name is Igor Klenner, I-G-O-R, K-L-E-N-E-R.
Hey, KL.
K-L is in Larry, E, N is in Nancy, E, R is in Robert.
Okay.
And I live at
Your address?
58 Minnesink Road, which is right next door. Welcome to the neighborhood. Welcome to the neighborhood. I wanted to ask a couple of questions about drainage. That's the main reason why we're here tonight. And I didn't bring photos or billboards or this or that, but on May 29th it rained, and you could see here.
Where is this? It's on the back of your.
So if you're on Minnesink, facing your house, your property meets up with my property. Okay, so
You're right.
I'm right here.
Yeah.
I'm right here. So
So he's south.
Okay.
yeah, I'm
He's
right
south.
I
here.
understand.
Downhill,
Yeah,
south.
I'm downhill. I'm literally. So I'm downhill, and on May 29th it rained, and it was a severe rain, and we had mud come down, and we had what's the thing called, mulch Will the mulch wash away?
Wait, you
Yeah.
can't
You
speak,
can't
you're not,
speak.
you're not under,
Stop yourself, Edith. But the mulch came down, and mud came down, and I spoke to Chris, your foreman over there. He sent a couple guys with some rakes, but still, I still had to spend $750
What's
to...
your question?
My question is, what are you going to do to stop the drainage from coming down the slope? I've lived in the house since 1996, and we have not had a problem before, and we had a problem now. So I'm saying, how are you going to address that?
So,
Come to the microphone first.
So
Say
I
your
would,
name.
Jonathan Wilf, manager at 66 Minutes Inc. I'll say, with full honesty, we've worked with every neighbor to make sure that everything is rectified to the nth degree. We want to be friendly neighbors, so
We do too,
that's first of
yeah.
all, no, that's fine. We've done tremendous amount of improvements internal to our property. Not everything has been tied in yet. So we can only do a lot of that work once this carriage house has obviously been moved. A lot of the drainage goes through that area and ties into the extensive storm drainage that we've put in on the property that does properly drain out to the township storm sewer. That never was the case before. Neighbors way downhill from you probably were getting devastated for years, and we've solved that problem. And it just, I would say, please bear with us until we get the project done. And if it is an ongoing problem, we're always here to help you out. But that's one aspect of it. Brian can also speak to. We have been continuing along the entire perimeter of the property. We are up to where's the low area that we put on. Sorry, I'm on the wrong side.
Yeah, sorry, there's a low point here.
Yes. Okay, so that one, all the drainage that's going to be going in over there, there's nothing in it right now. Everything kind of sheets off.
Right.
The property right here?
I'm downhill.
I'm sorry, yes. Everything here sheets off. This drain, this drive yard drain that goes out to Minnesink isn't there yet.
Okay.
So anything that's caught here, basically, builds up, sheets down all the way to the back. So we can't do that until we do our driveway. It's been going to here. I don't know if you want
Yeah,
to
no, I mean,
elaborate.
what I was just gonna say is that we've been obviously building our way from the bottom of the hill towards the top, and this is the front yard. And so what I'm showing here is this drain, this drain, this drain, these swales that run along the driveway, none of that has been built.
Okay.
So part of the problem is that all the water that is coming down this way is coming down. So until this curb line gets built along the roadway, until these drains are installed, which the dry well has already been installed, but the drains have not been physically installed. Part of the problem is we have a lot of the dry wells installed. None of the leader drains are going into leaders, going into dry wells yet. So the gutters are put on the roof and so a lot of the water that's gonna be caught and contained on the property is still just going everywhere. So, I mean, most of it has been directed towards the road where possible, but clearly this is, as you know, this is a 3-to-1 slope from the driveway down the hill. So if any water gets across the driveway, it gathers a lot of speed and can head that direction. So, and I think what we've talked about, the driveway having the curbs, the driveway having the swales, putting in the drains that connect in, will alleviate, I would say, the majority of any water that is coming down this way. The only water will be the water that's landing, in this area that we have
Right.
to deal with.
I've been in the house since '96, and we had one time some water, but that's 23 years.
I said, when was that photo taken? I'm just curious.
May 29th. May 29th.
Okay.
I could send it to you.
No, that would be great. Just curious, just investigative work. Is there a drain in the back of your property?
There's a
Like
drain.
a catch basin?
There's a catch basin, like it's
Yeah.
concrete thing that's with a grid on it right.
And is that backing up now?
That's where the water went and the mud went.
Yes.
But was that
Do you-
functioning? Was the
Oh,
inlet
yeah, it's
functioning?
always-
Okay. Do you mind if Brian walks your property, because we think we understand.
Yeah, I think I see where.
Yeah,
the
we
low
know where it's
spot
coming
is.
from. We understand. I think we understand why it's not draining anymore, and that's
No. On your property, but on my property, the.
All right, gentlemen, I'm gonna put an end to this.
Understood, understood. We
You
will,
can have this conversation
I will,
afterwards.
we'll
Okay.
come by the
You've asked
property
your
whenever you
question.
want.
And if
We'll-
there
we'll
are
make-
any-
We'll make sure it's good.
If there are any
Yes.
measures you can implement, while all this is
Yeah,
going on to
we obviously
minimize,
put up silt fences,
Yeah.
and we do as
Right.
much as we can. It's an ongoing construction project. We will,
We understand.
yeah,
Okay.
Thank you.
understood, and I appreciate you bringing that up.
Okay.
Any other questions from members of the audience? Is there anyone in the audience who has a statement he or she would like to make with respect to this application?
I was sworn in already?
yes, you have to do it again.
Oh,
It's a different case.
okay. Oh. I do. Lynn Ranieri, Lynnne, Ranieri at 94 Oakview Terrace. Want my credentials? No, I'm joking. I'll give you some. I just would like to make a couple of comments on the proposed plans here. I've had an interest in Charlotte for quite a while through the Historical Society, through HPC when I used to be on it. And it's a remarkable house, and I'm delighted that you seem to take such an interest in preserving it. I have no concerns whatsoever about the proposals for the carriage house, but I did have a couple of comments I would like to make about the proposed gate. One is the historic character of the neighborhood when that house was built was different than it is now, and I think it's wise to look at security on this and securing that property. A gate is not a permanent structure. It's not like you're building a building on there. It's just a gate that can be removed at any time. So I think that that's another argument for permitting the gate. I think setting back the gate will have the advantage of reducing the visual impact of it. I found lots of pictures, historic photos of Charlotte on, I don't know if you need these for, I'll pass them around, for Charlotte of historic photos. And there was attractive decorative wrought iron fencing all over that property. But this picture has one running the length in front of the house, and you can barely see it. And my suggestion would be perhaps to consider putting in a wrought iron instead of the wood one, which I find a little more visually intrusive. The wrought iron, as I said, you can hardly even notice it. Black fits in there. It's, I would have assumed, even more secure. And it has the advantage that you can electrify it and electrocute anybody who tries to get into your property. So that was the only thing. Don't keep that on the record.
Too late.
So I just would like to suggest that you consider maybe replicating some of the wrought iron that used to be there. Do you need this as a?
If you give it to us, you will not get it back.
Oh, I don't care.
If you want to give it to them, go ahead, and we won't mark it.
That's my only comment.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else in the audience have a statement he or she would like to make with respect to the application? Swear the witness, please.
I do. Allison Canfield, C-A-N, of 75 Western Drive, Short Hills. I'd like to speak on behalf of this application, answer a couple of questions. I wanted also to be a resource to all of you, like I promised you last time I stood in front of you, that I would not allow an application to come through and it get caught up for anything that has to do with historic, we were unable to answer any questions, or we did not have that on the resolution. So I hope you did receive the memorializations and resolutions and suggestions from Barton Ross. So I made sure I was here this evening if you had any other questions. But I would like to just let you know what we deal with every day, that this property was much larger. I think, if I can look at this piece here, that that map, and as we see this property here today, it included and past this. This particular house, which is the neighbor's house here, were the gardens that today, this photograph still are in the Smithsonian. So understand that this property was much larger, and being in a historic district, we deal with this all the time, these non-conforming lots, drainage. When they subdivided these properties, they didn't take in consideration, where the water was gonna land, where it was gonna go after they subdivided them. But I do know, and I can vouch that 2 years working with this whole project, and they have done nothing but really just every detail in keeping, even the mushroom house, everything that they've done. And I just want you to know that Historic would like you to approve this application as it stands, because it's they have paid attention to every detail above and beyond.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything more from the applicant?
Nothing.
Thank you. I'll close the public portion of the meeting. Board members, comments?
Well, I'll say that I remember when the application came before us the first time, and I was thrilled to death that Jonathan was taking this project under his wing. He does everything A++, and I'm happy that you're back here again, and I can see the progress that you've been making. And I think the community is very, very grateful to you for undertaking this restoration. And I would be very happy to approve the application before us.
Anyone else have anything to say? If not, is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mary McNutt,
Yes.
Jody Sharma.
Yes.
Joy Siegel.
Yes.
Steve Tomer,
Yes.
James Torres,
Yes.
Jessica Pat,
Yes.
Yes. And I want to say that I got out of the property today without destroying either my car or myself, although it was a close case.
We try to keep it clean. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have I now destroyed or buried even, okay, the next matter we're going to hear is Benjamin at 23 Woodfield.
Last name is Benjamin, Yehoshua Benjamin, Yehoshua, and the last name is Benjamin.
I'm Chris Blake, architect, 24 New Bridge Road, Bergenfield, New Jersey, B-L-A-K-E.
So we are trying, we purchased the house about a year ago. We're trying to make it a house for our family. Unfortunately, my wife cannot be here, even though she would like to be here. She's outside of the country. She'll be back in 2 weeks for emergency. When we worked with Chris on the plan, we saw that there are 2 variances that are required in order for us to execute the plan and to create a house that will be for us for the long term. So one of them is, let Chris talk more about it, but one of them is a design issue and side setback that he will describe, and we need variance for that, or we would like to ask variance for that. The other one, I looked at that, and we categorize this as a different reason. It's much more about safety and safety, I would call it. The house sit on, you probably saw it in the last few days, sit on a bit on a hill. And in order to drive up, it happened that the garage is in the back of the house. So when guests are coming, first of all, they need to drive up to drop somebody or to visit or to bring a child as a family member. No, they need to drive up. And then somebody come down and go into the front of the house. But now when they go back, there is no way for them to turn around because the garage is used by somebody. The garage is not easy to access because the garage is facing the back of the house. As such, we don't want to build a new house. We want to renovate the existing and to add space to accommodate. So the garage and the rest of that is going to stay the way they are. I view it that I don't want to take the risk that a family member come to me or a guest come to me, a child come to me, not to talk about they need to go on a slope in the winter and it can be icy or not. But the car is facing north, the back of the house, and it cannot turn around. So now you need to drive back. And you're on a steep slope, you drive back, you don't see very much anymore. When you come to the street, you don't see there is a retaining wall over there, you don't see. So we ask, the second element, for safety measurement, we ask to have some turnaround area. It has been categorized as a parking area, but that's not the attempt for that. So we would like to have there an area that a car comfortably, a guest, can turn around, face back, and now drive down with the face down without taking the risk of hurting a kid that go behind you or somebody that drive behind you or whatsoever. The rest I let Chris talk, and I'm sure that he'll be able to represent and answer questions much better than us.
I'll start the questioning of this witness myself.
Thank you.
Mr. Benjamin, tell me again why a guest cannot come up that driveway, drive into the back where the garage is, and get out of the car and walk around to the front and in the front door?
From experience, the garage are built in such a way that in order to park in, everybody has in their home today 2 cars. The reality. So when my car is there and my wife's car is there, it's not easy to park them and the day in and day out, and you need to go out from the house many times and come in many times. You don't tend to go into the garage. To go into the garage, the way they structure those houses, it's not an easy process. You need to go up, rotate 180 degrees, and face into the garage. You come, you most likely, you park the car in that area of the back of the house, behind, nobody see it, it's in the back of the house, but you're not attempting to go into the garage. So now a guest is coming, my car is there, I came half an hour before that. Okay, they cannot, that's one reason. So there is not an easy way. Second, even if my car was in the garage and they needed to rotate, it's a movement of experienced driver because it's not a large area. You need to move left, rotate back, you may hit the back, now you go forward a little bit, you need to, it's to maneuver in such a garage that is facing in the back of the house, that there is not a large paved area there, it is not an easy process. And second, cars are there already because that's the way we live. We don't take the time to go into the garage, take another 5 minutes to go in and to go out as you drive in, as you drive out.
Any other questions of this witness? Next witness. You need to qualify yourself as an expert in architecture, is that correct?
That's correct. My name is Chris.
Give us the benefit of your education, your background, your experience.
Sure. My name is Chris Blake, architect. Graduate of Kent State University, Bachelor of Architecture in 1984, licensed State of New York 1988, licensed State of New Jersey 1993. I've appeared before this board many years ago. I've appeared before many boards throughout northern New Jersey, every day, every month, many times already this year. My credentials are still in good standing. I've been a sole proprietor, licensed architect on my own since 1999.
And your license in New Jersey
Yes.
is in good standing, is
Yes,
that correct?
yes.
Proceed.
We're proposing an addition and a renovation for a house at 23 Woodfield Drive in Short Hills. It's, I'm going to call it on the north side of the street. As a homeowner has already kind of described, the house is on a hill, is on a higher topography than the street below. The house is pretty much in the middle of the property. We're in the R3 district where 29,000 square feet is required. We have an existing 27,286, so just slightly under. 115-foot lot width is required, and we're 110.92, again, just slightly under. There's an existing nonconformities as far as the lot goes. We're proposing basically an addition to the rear. There is kind of a previous addition to a rear. It's a one-story family room, I'll call it. We're kind of proposing to more or less encompass that with a larger addition, which will be a 2 stories. The basic bones in the structure and the main portion of the house will remain. It is a center hall, very classical 2-story colonial, and that will kind of remain intact. There is an appendage, I'm going to call it on the right-hand side of the property, which is a 1-story 2-car garage. Again, as the owner has already described, the garage doors face the rear of the property. The driveway on the right-hand side is, well, the garage itself on the right-hand side is 20.6 feet away from the property line. So it is essentially just enough for a driveway to kind of get to the back of the property and again, kind of spin around to get into that rear-facing garage. It's a 2-car garage. It is not oversized by any means, but it's about 23 by 24 feet, so it's respectable 2-car garage. Currently, the 2-car garage on that portion of the house is a 1-story structure. And what we're proposing to build is a 2nd floor above that 2-car garage, kind of, if you will, to complete the house, to complete the look from the street so it doesn't look like there's a garage tail, if you will, on the right-hand side of the building. By adding this 2nd floor above the garage, again, 20 points, well, it actually at one corner becomes 20.4 feet away from the side yard property. We are requiring a side yard setback where 25 feet is required, and again, we're proposing 20.4. The existing house has a 20.88 foot side yard setback on the left-hand side. We're proposing not to really do any work on that side of the property, so that will be maintained, but as a to be thorough, that is an existing non-conforming.
Well, that's conforming.
I'm sorry, yes, that is conforming. But that is an existing
It does
site.
look like there's going to be a 2-story addition back there, but it will be conforming. I'm looking at your plans.
Correct, but the original house is closer to it, so I don't think it was.
Right.
All the other zoning criteria, the combined side yard setback, the building coverage, the building height, the lot coverage, the floor area ratio are all being maintained, well, all being conforming to the zoning ordinance, and I'd like to say and then some, where 25% FAR is required, we're only posing 20.63. The lot coverage is allowed to be 35%, we're only proposing
I'm going to
something over
interrupt you and ask you
26.
to focus on the variance that's being requested
Sure,
for the side yard setback on the right side
sure.
of the property. And I'm particularly interested in your view as to the effect of that roughly 5-foot deficiency on the property next to it.
Right. Well, again, the proposal is to make the 2nd floor above the existing garage. The alternative to conform with the zoning ordinance would be to make the setback, the building step in 5 feet. So the 2nd floor would be over 75 or 80% of the garage, but not over the entire thing. We think it looks more aesthetically pleasing. it's more functional in the floor plan, and we think it's a proper, appropriate way to deal with it to make it to the full extent. However, that does require 4 feet and change of a side yard setback. That portion of the side yard has a neighbor to the right-hand side, if you will, has a neighbor over there as well. That neighbor is more raised. Again, as much as this building, our building is on a hill, it's on a higher portion of the property than the street. The next door neighbor to the right is even on a higher hill, so their slope is even up higher. So I think our second floor will still be probably in the vicinity of their first floor. It's not going to be overpowering or overseeing or towering over the neighbor property at all. We have a driveway there, and besides the driveway, I imagine it's on their property for that matter, there is a lot of landscaping. There's a lot of trees and bushes. I'm not recalling whether they're evergreen or deciduous, but there is a lot of landscaping between the two properties. The neighboring property probably has a similar 20 to 25 foot side yard setback. The building is similarly set back from the street about the same amount in the same position as our house, as is the neighbor to the left as well. I think that the street flows and the buildings kind of all work together in that situation. Again, I think with the second floor being lower than the adjacent building, that there being, I'm not sure at that point of the building, if there is a retaining wall, there is a retaining wall lower down the street side, if you will, for the driveway. But again, that retaining wall is holding the property next door at a higher level. So I think between the retaining wall, the landscaping, the fact that it's, 4 feet, 4.5 feet, if you will, and the fact that our our second floor structure is lower than their original 2-story house, I think it will kind of fit in with the neighborhood, and I don't think it'll be a detriment. I don't think it'll be hovering over the neighbor, if you will.
Are there any other questions from board members of this witness?
I have one question.
Pardon me?
On sheet A4, the new ridge appears higher than the existing ridge, is that true?
It is true. At this moment, we were working on that to try to make that not so much the case. It's a property of the geometry, if you will. The house, that part of the garage is wider than the original house, so the roof would actually go higher. But we are trying to work with the roof to maybe make that roof pitch, ever so slightly, 0.5% degree less steep or something of that nature, so we can make the roofs line up. The intention is the roof will be very similar to the main house, and I think that's a good observation. I think it would look better if it was.
I have a couple of questions.
Please.
Go ahead.
With respect to the driveway and the turnaround area, if I'm looking at diagram A1,
Correct.
so do I look at this correctly that the driveway is actually going to be pulled in a bit from the side of the boundary, from the side of the property?
Yeah,
That green line is where it is.
Correct. The intention is to pull the main driveway, if you will, the whole driveway, in off a little bit off of that retaining wall that's kind of literally on the property line to the right. There's a question, if you will, of the state of that retaining wall. It's not exactly brand new.
Yeah.
If I can say something about that, that retaining wall is in a terrible condition, and it happened to be on the neighbor's side.
Oh.
So it's not in our property. So the retaining wall that you saw there is not nice, and it belongs to the neighbor. So still we will need to do something with the neighbor, to talk to the neighbor, to see and to come to some kind of
If you don't
resolution.
talk to the neighbor, that retaining wall is going to be on your property very soon.
It's, from a map point of view, it's on his
I know.
property. The resolution, I know what will happen. I can imagine what could happen, but it's something need to happen. But one thing is, if he's saying this is my retaining wall, I don't want to do anything, maybe the right way is to move a few feet away and to plant something over there, because the retaining is in a bad condition and it is very ugly by itself. So, I mean, the attempt is just to take a few feet. Today, the driveway is on the retaining wall, on the boundary.
I have a question for Eileen. Is that, if the curb cut moves, is that,
Yeah, I was not aware that I was not aware that there was new driveway. So what is the current driveway? The current driveway is,
The current driveway is the faint green line, if you will, up to the property line. Current driveway literally rubs up against the property line.
you need to maintain a five-foot setback on the driveway.
Right, so what we've proposed is to move most of the forward part of the driveway 5 feet away from the property line, so it does meet the zoning ordinance. We actually have a challenge where we have to make this hairpin turn and get into the garage, where moving the 5 feet away from the neighboring property is gonna cause more of a hardship to make that garage usable.
But a variance hasn't been requested for that.
We're not changing it, is what it is, it's an existing
So
nonconformity.
for all purpose, I mean, Chris, is it true to say that we could stay with the driveway the way it is, attached to the retaining wall of the neighbor?
Right, we're proposing to move portion of it and to comply with the zoning ordinance, and we're proposing to leave a portion of it existing nonconformity to remain.
Does the ordinance require the 5 feet be consistent all the way back?
For any new driveway, correct. Has to maintain a 5 foot. If you're gonna leave the old driveway,
We're proposing a half and half solution.
you know, anything new would, only because I was not aware that there was new driveway being. So that wasn't even, relief wasn't sought for that, for the driveway section.
Half of it is a challenge, because when you come close to the house, the way it is, I mean, you cannot, I mean, it becomes a challenge to move. So, I mean, staying with the existing seems to be the right way.
If you were gonna just resurface, that wouldn't even come to me, but if you're gonna redo a whole driveway, you know, you're gonna have an issue right when you taper off to the property line.
When you're not in conformance with the 5-foot setback.
So you have an issue.
So what's the right way, Chris? I mean, to stay with the right one that exists today, and maybe if we need a foot or two to the left, and extend it foot or two onto the left, just for the straight line of it or something. But then I assume it doesn't require a variance, but stay with the driveway the way it is.
Well, in any event, we're adding the guest turnaround, so I'm not sure what we're proposing a guest turnaround.
Does the guest turnaround mean that?
We're changing the driveway?
Let me, I have a couple of questions about the second floor addition over the garage.
Yep.
I'm just looking at what appears to have been, you describe it on your plan, sheet A1, as a site plan taken from a property survey. Eileen, I assume you never received a property survey, an existing property survey.
12 copies of the survey.
You have an existing?
Yes.
Okay, I don't think it was part of our package. Oh, it is?
Yes, I gave 12 copies of it.
I don't know if I got that.
Let's see.
On the survey, that's why I didn't pick up on the driveway, because,
Yeah, where's the
I just thought you.
Oh, I have it. All right, well, I'm not gonna go by the site plan, I'm gonna go by the survey. It looks that the property has a lot width that ranges from 112.75 feet at the front of the property to 98.01 feet at the rear property. So it looks like your northerly side yard line tapers as it approaches the rear.
Correct.
And the required minimum lot width is 115 feet.
Correct.
If you had 115 feet, would your proposed second floor addition provide a conforming 25-foot side yard setback?
If the extra 5 feet was placed on
On
that
that
side.
side.
Yes, if the northerly side yard property line was perpendicular to the southerly, it would be compliant. The resultant of the narrow lot and the shape of the lot is partially, largely influencing the setback.
So the wall that we're talking about that's in disrepair, is that the concrete wall?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
So the dry laid stone wall on that appears to be on the applicant's property on the survey, that's your dry laid stone wall, not the neighbor's?
No, the entire retaining wall is the neighbor
No.
retaining wall.
The dry stone laid is a very short wall that is on our
Sorry,
property
sorry.
surrounding our driveway. It's,
That's
2
the
feet tall.
applicant's,
It's 2 feet, it's the applicant, yes.
that's yours,
Yes, it's
Correct.
2 feet and less, it's like 2 level of 2 feet.
okay.
the other wall is larger, that's the one we notice.
Eileen, I saw on your attachment B, you had a question about, front yard wall heights.
Right, at the time they weren't specified, but I do see.
This says now 2 feet.
Yes, now I
Okay.
can say that.
So that's not an issue any longer.
Eileen, I think we can use the survey and the map and kind of the layout on the survey as the target that we have in mind. So then I don't see a movement of the driveway on the right. I see it stayed and maybe it just adjusted a little bit on the left.
Well, the turnaround area is still requiring variance.
Yes, the turnaround is, we started the discussion by the safety issue that related to this because of the steep slope.
This was presented as the driveway was remaining, and you'd like to add a small portion on the left side to make it wider. So, I mean, I had no problems with that, the way it was presented.
Right, we have none either, we can
Work around it.
we can propose that.
So you don't see that, Eileen, as a required additional variance?
No.
Okay. Any other questions from board members?
I have.
Mary?
Isn't there anything, I'm really bothered by that turnaround, because that's going to look really strange on that property. It's up on a hill, and it's gonna have to do something with that.
Absolutely. I did not add, you're absolutely right. I forgot to add one more thing. When it's about 75 feet away, the house from the street. And the retaining wall and the neighbor is a much higher elevation. From the front, yes, it will bother. We will do all the planting that I would do. It depends on us. And we get the blessing. We will plant as much as we can, trees and shrubs and nice, and so car that will rotate there, that will not be seen from the street. Today, if you saw the lot, it's kind of empty. It's 112 feet wide and empty, and you see the bulk house in front of you. By the time we finish and beautify it and add to it, I mean, it will look nice. So we will plant in front of that drop area. So one, you won't see. It will hide part of the house. It will part, and it will make it a little bit even from, I mean, it will, if the car rotate, nobody will see.
Mr.
But
Benjamin,
for me, it's the safety
Mr. Benjamin,
issue.
there's a problem there. You testified, and we were there, that the house is up from the street.
Right?
If you have a area in front of the house for a so-called guest turnaround,
Yes.
and you planting in front of that,
Front of it, yes.
you're gonna have to have very high trees. You can't put in a
Yeah, but
6-foot
I mean,
tree.
8-foot shrubs, 9-foot shrubs of green
8,
10
9,
and 12.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm ready to commit for that. I mean, if this will I think it's safety. For safety, you don't, I mean, for safety, we need to find a solution. Because I don't want to take the risk of somebody and going and hurting somebody. I'm not going to park there. My park is in the back. My garage is in the back. It's not for purpose. It's a purpose if some guest is coming and a kid is coming with them. I don't want to take the risk that somebody goes backward and hurt somebody. So I will plant whatever is needed to make it nice and not noticeable.
I think what you're saying is you would put plantings in the front yard to buffer the view of the turnaround area, not to buffer the view of the second floor addition.
Correct. There is quite a lot of landscaping between the two houses, and I think that,
I have a question. The turnaround seems so deep. Have you done, this is more for the architect, have you done any studies? Like if a car, I understand the safety thing, and I think that's great that you're concerned with it. If a car goes in and then backs up into the turn, why does the turnaround have to be so deep?
So wide also.
Yeah, wide and deep. Like it does appear like as two cars will park there. I'm not saying that you're
It could-
saying they will, but it appears that way.
Right.
So has any studies, diagrams been done taking a typical car size and doing, kind of the maneuvering? Like why does it have to be so big?
It's aesthetically I mean, I let Chris answer,
I
but
don't
I
see
see
anything aesthetic about it. I mean, if it's for function and for safety, then why does it have to be so big? Like, can it work at a much smaller scale?
I'm sure it can work at a smaller scale. I'm not gonna say a much smaller scale. The idea was, the intention was to make it 18-foot long, which is about the length of a car from the, I don't know, from the driveway, we'll call it up near the garage.
I still want to be able to drive into my garage. Somebody came, okay, he came, there are a few scenarios. Somebody came and went away. Somebody came and went into the house and is coming out in 15 minutes. What do you do? So he could be here. I mean, the extra space could give another car to drive down while this one temporarily is standing over there.
Right, that's how.
So then
deep it
you're
is,
gonna
how
use it
wide
for a
is.
parking space.
You're saying the width of it to accommodate more. I mean, we can make it smaller if this is an
Wait.
issue.
I'm hearing from your testimony that this area, which is labeled new guest turnaround area,
Yes.
is not only gonna be a turnaround area, it is gonna be used as a parking space for visitors to your house. That's possible that would happen.
If it's possible, if it is there and it is available, it is
People are gonna use it.
It is possible to use it as element of that, yes. It's possible. It's safer, I mean, but the rationale, I would not spend money in order to create a parking area for my neighbor, for my friend or for my guest or my family. That's not the goal. I mean, my goal is to turn around. Now, if somebody came into the house for 15 minutes before turning around is another scenario. I mean, that's part of life. I mean, yes, you can do, let's hide it in a sense. I mean, another alternative that came into my mind, I mean, make a circular driveway there. There is enough space there. But I'm trying to say, I mean, it's overkill on the whole thing. Why to even go that route if I can create and get the safety that is needed? Yes, it's possible that somebody will park there for half an hour. I will not park there. My access to the house is in the back. There is a door into the kitchen, into the family room. I don't need to come from the main. My wife is not. The kids are not. But if guest is coming and it stayed there for half an hour, okay, it's nice. They came and they landed in front of the house. And they went back after and they drove forward and we took the risk, theoretically, of the risk of something happened to them on that.
Is there any other testimony?
Just to finalize, it is about 18 feet long for a car to sit there just in case that there is someone still moving through the driveway itself. The width is about 14 or 15 feet wide. I personally had a driveway that was just wide enough to fit a car with a 2-foot retaining wall next to it, and every time I open my door, I hit that retaining wall. And that gets to be really annoying. So I think it needs to be a little bit of a sizable one-car parking spot. It's not meant to put 2 cars there side by side, but it is meant to be a little bit of a sizable one to maneuver with this landscaping and retaining walls and steps and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Can you use grass pavers there instead of asphalt?
We could definitely use some kind of pavers, I'm not sure.
You know, grass
No, she's,
So
Ms.
50-50 kind of
McNett is
idea?
talking about grass pavers, which are,
50-50 kind of thing, or completely?
No, it
grass?
looks
There-
like grass.
it's an open paver, grass paved too, it's like a paver that has openings in it where
Yeah,
grass
I know
grows
what you
through.
mean.
It's possible to, I never thought about this, but it may be a good idea, but I mean,
Well, it gets rid of that site, when you go by that house, you're gonna see that asphalt there.
but one thing to say, I mean, you will have some retaining wall, I mean, it's still, this area need to be protected on the left side with a 2-foot retaining wall, so car will not go down the hill on the grass. So from the street, you will see a little bit of a nice retaining wall, and we'll do a nice retaining wall to match with the stone of the house or whatever will emerge there. We will plant some shrubs and trees there to hide it, so you will not see the cars or from the street. I'm sure it will be pleasing. I mean, what I'm trying to convey and to ask the permission, garage is in the back. We don't change the garage. We are not building a new house. Let's park in the garage. I'll park in the garage. But if somebody is coming, let's give them a way to access the house in a proper way and to live the proper way. And we'll make sure to hide it from anybody else so nobody will see it.
So you're gonna build a retaining wall in front of where you're drawing, it's not shown on the drawing.
No,
yes?
so we put a retaining wall here in the, I'm not sure, I don't have it in front of me, but on
I
the
think
actual
I think the
plan,
retaining wall is shown, but it's not identified.
Okay.
it's not identified, but yes, a 2-foot retaining wall all across the front of the house
Oh, I see.
to match. I did not, I
You
mean,
see,
Give it a little bit of a step.
you
Is
see
that
how
the
on the
gr-
left,
that the
Mary,
green?
it says proposed 2-foot-high maximum stone retaining wall? That is that line that, it's not pointing to anything, but
yes, this is the line.
it's that,
It's the
S
whole-
shape you see at the
It's
front
that
of
little
the
double line
property.
that extends almost the width of the property. Again, it's to kind of give it that terraced kind of feel.
So have you considered putting this one-car parking, the area that you created here to be at another location, maybe closer to the road? In case of snow,
This
I've
is
seen
tough.
that.
I've seen it, it's tough. It's possible, but now you still need to walk the driveway on an icy condition, on a snowy condition, on a nice rainy condition, and it's become for guests or whoever less attractive in a sense. If I had the option, it is an option. If I needed to measure that, I will try to go to circular driveway that take much more headache and expense and execution of that, but to get something that is slightly closer to the entrance of the house. It's a 75 feet from the house, and it's going on a slip slope. I mean, so maybe for us it's not a problem, but young kids or early age coming, it is a challenge.
But that there's a precedence for that kind of a parking spot where, your car will have access to the road in case the conditions are bad and you can't climb up your driveway.
It's possible to put some turnaround, but then you don't accomplish the issue of getting closer to the house. You're still 75 feet away from the entrance of the house, and it's not an easy condition to climb that. for
Somehow it
everybody.
doesn't look very aesthetic as it's shown in the diagram.
As it's shown, it's not look as very aesthetic?
I think a circular driveway is more of a standard norm rather
Yes.
than something like this.
From cost effective, I felt that I'm getting the feature that I need without carrying the cost of circulating the whole driveway and taking a hell of a lot of landscaping, a lot of retaining wall and doing. But it's I mean, somebody can have a different view on that. I looked at this, there's so expensive today to put all of this in place.
Okay, so exactly where would you put the landscaping to help conceal the turnaround? Where would that landscaping go?
I think that is in front of the retaining wall of all of that. I mean, you have, it's like,
Of all of what? You have to be more specific. You're being
No,
very general
I'm
in what you're
sorry.
saying, and I
Is
need,
Landscaping through here, or just?
exactly
He's not
where
looking
is
into the
is it gonna go?
if you look at the width of the house and you have the area that is mentioned, yes, on the actual plan, if there is a retaining wall shown
Yeah.
from this area to that area. I think that we will execute some kind of retaining wall from this that keep integrating in front of it, so when you look from the street,
Well, you think you'll execute, or you will execute?
I will execute. The plan is asking for a retaining wall of 2 feet into this area to continuation, and it can be integrated with this.
Where is that retaining
Yes.
wall in the
Yes,
plan?
on the front
Yeah.
page of that, yes. I'm sorry that it is not consistent. Here it is, the line. And on the right-hand side, and some on the left, and there is a mark on the left, you see a proposed retaining wall 2 feet high. And it's integrated with the retaining wall of this landing area. So you can plant in front of it. So if you plant nice shrubs and nice trees, and it will look nice together in my mind. With the new facade of the house that need to emerge.
Any other testimony? Is there anyone in the audience who has any questions of either of these two witnesses?
Then you have to come forward.
Come forward.
You say you are going to.
You have to identify your name and address,
Paul
please.
Smith, 18 Shoreline Drive.
What was your name?
Smith, S-M-I-T-H.
And your first name?
Paul, B-A-U-L. My property abuts, mine is number 6, lot number.
He's asking a question, right?
Yes, I'm asking a question. How high will this 2-story addition be on top of the house? Because I wanted to know if I would see that myself by coming to the boundary.
It's a second floor addition on top of the garage
Okay,
that will not be any taller than the main house.
okay, now, how far back are you going here with the stone patio and everything?
I can tell you that in a second. So the addition to the rear, it'll be an additional 5.5 feet further than the original, from the furthest point of the original addition.
Okay, so it won't cut to the land here or here?
No, by no means. Again, we're referring to the lot 6 in the rear where
Yeah, that's what I'm,
the original house was 127 feet away. The proposed addition will be 121 feet away, so it's only getting 6 feet closer.
yeah,
And
yeah.
again, that's over a large stance, that's
Then that's okay.
minimal. The rear patio will obviously just be not even a one-story, it'll just be a
Okay.
patio on the ground that has no roof structure, it has no walls.
And you're putting the turnaround in front?
The driveway turnaround that we're speaking of is in front of the existing garage.
Ah, okay, okay. Well, that's all my questions.
And where is your house in relation?
It's on top, Shoreline Drive, where the red brick house at the end, if you
At the end of the
drove
cul-de-sac?
up the drive, what?
At the end of the
At the
cul-de-sac?
cul-de-sac, yeah. We're the only house on that hill, on Shoreline. We're in the center of the cul-de-sac.
In the survey, it's on the upper right-hand corner of the property.
Lot 6.
So,
I think the work we're doing will be minimal impact
Okay,
on what
'cause
you'll see.
because I'm thinking of this aesthetic value of the property
Sure.
as well as the value of the property? Would it hurt it?
No, I think if anything, obviously,
So-
the house, I'm not gonna say is in disrepair, but the house is old and tired, we'll call it. I think that we are doing a respectable amount of work to make the house look new and modern and
Okay.
still a center hall colonial, but, you know, an updated and upkept version of
Okay.
what was there before.
Then that's okay with me, that's fine. So,
Okay,
thank
sir.
you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to make a statement now with respect to this application? I hear none, I see none. I'll close the public portion of the meeting. Board members?
When I was over at that house, I mean, it is very steep. It's a very narrow driveway. And, you know, I was thinking, you know, turnaround area, well, maybe we could do maybe you could do a circular driveway, but I mean, there's no good answer. I mean, that's just adding on more asphalt. So, I'm really not bothered by the turnaround area. I've seen it at other houses. There's a house on Highland that has it. Then, you know, I've used it before when I've gone over to that house, and I think if it's done appropriately with this retaining wall and landscaping, I think that it would be nice. And I think it's necessary for a house like this that is so steep, you know, with such a narrow driveway. So, and as for the you know, the second story addition, I'm fine with that too. I would like to see that get as, you know, close to possible as the rest of the house, yeah.
I agree.
So, I see this turnaround, it's a parking space. I mean, one of the things we have to consider is notwithstanding the testimony of the applicant, what's the next homeowner gonna do? You're always gonna have a car parked there. It's gonna be a parking space. That's definitely what it's going to be. And, you know, when you're a homeowner, I mean, I don't know how frequently people sort of jut into their house, grab something and jump back out again. We don't do a lot of that. We go out, we do our thing, we come back, we park. And we're not in and out of the house where we need a temporary space. I don't see it. But you'll always have a car parked in there, and there'll always be a car parked in there overnight.
I think that for the safety purposes, getting down that hill, some of us have driveways that we have to drive out backwards, and that's a precarious road to have to back out onto. So I think that the retaining wall and the landscaping will make a difference in shielding that from the street. And otherwise, I don't have a problem with the rest of the application.
I'll chime in on this. I don't have a problem with the side yard setback variance. I think that that other house is at a higher elevation, and this second floor is not, at 5 feet, is not gonna make a difference. I'm very troubled by the so-called guest turnaround. I think that you're absolutely correct. It's gonna be a parking space. And I was interested in the testimony of the applicant. He was talking to this board, obviously, but he was also talking to me. And my wife and I have lived in our house for 52 years, and we always park in the garage. No matter where we go or how long we're out, when we come back, we pull into the garage. I think there's a fair amount of space behind the garage. This is a very sensitive area of town. There are a lot of circular driveways in that area, but nothing that, I don't think a circular driveway is gonna work with a house that's steep like this. I don't see any reason why that driveway behind the garage can't be used for the purpose of, if in fact the theory is that this will be used simply for a guest, and will not be used as a parking space. I don't see why the area behind the garage can't be used. And that area could, it'll cost some money, but it could be deepened, meaning you could extend that bituminous driveway toward the rear of the property. There's a lot of space back there,
It's a very high elevation that it is.
but it can be
going
cut
over.
in. You can cut into it. My thinking at the moment is that I would be in favor of the side yard setback variance and opposed to the parking area. I'm calling it a parking area because that's what it's gonna be.
I feel the same way as the chair. I would be fine with the second floor if once the ridge beam aligns with the existing. But I agree that if safety could be addressed by extending the existing area in the rear. I know it's digging out and a retaining wall, but, cause is so big now, like if there's an SUV parked there, the trees, the wall, it's not gonna hide it. And I think it's not a good thing.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm of the same opinion. I'm not in favor of that parking spot in the front of the house.
I think especially since, I mean, you're proposing, there's a proposed retaining wall back there anyways, so if it's back another few feet, I mean, that seems like would be a more aesthetically pleasing solution to the issue.
Okay, it's time for, before I ask for motions, I think we should vote separately on these two variances. And I'll ask our attorney to repeat what she said to an earlier applicant who had a split vote issue.
Okay, so if the board goes to a vote, and the board is contemplating voting on each variance separately, so it sounds like most, if not all of the board, is not troubled by the second floor addition. They may have some conditions such as the ridge line or whatever, that kind of thing. But you certainly can tell that a majority of the board is not viewing that parking turnaround area that you're describing favorably. If you want the board to vote on that tonight, and they vote no, meaning they deny that portion of your application, you would not be able to come back with something similar. You would have to have a substantially different proposal. You've heard a lot of their comments. They think you can extend the driveway farther back, cut into, the back of the property, put up a greater retaining wall. But if you do ask them to vote tonight on the turnaround area and they say no, you're gonna have to come back with something substantially different than what you've proposed here.
So, may I answer?
Okay, well, can we talk for one moment, please?
Yes.
Absolutely.
If you'd like, you can.
It's not a secret, it's not a secret. If we want the driveway,
Mm-hmm. I think we can stay the way we are now, and we can extend this just to get it to the new line, that's another issue. We can stay, this goes away. May I answer it or tell you what I think?
No, we've closed the public portion of the meeting.
Well, we've asked him to respond to whether he wants to proceed or not proceed.
Yes, is there a motion to reopen the public portion?
Motion to reopen.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Come to the microphone.
So, it sounds that the turnaround is not being accepted, fair enough. And if it's not, as if we didn't propose it, I think it's right, but I mean, everybody has its own. So, I view it this way. Something like this needs to emerge, and I don't know what it is. One alternative, so I can ignore it now, as if it's not exist, as if I not ask for it.
You could withdraw that part of the
Yes,
application.
and eventually, when we execute the project and we learn more about the project and the complexity, we will come and propose a circular driveway. It will cost much more. It may be uglier, but it will provide the solution that we need. So I would like to ask if we can
Withdraw
withdraw the
that
request,
portion of the
yes.
application.
Right, and later when we execute a project and we learn more about it, we'll try to
You'll do
devise.
something.
We'll do
Okay.
something.
Yeah,
Thank
Okay.
you. Sorry.
okay.
So you're withdrawing this will just confirm you're withdrawing the request for the front yard parking area or turnaround area. That's being withdrawn.
Okay. That leaves one variance left. Is there a motion on that variance?
With a condition.
Okay.
What is your proposed condition?
At the roof line.
That the ridge line aligns with the existing ridge line.
It does not extend,
This should not be
Above.
higher than the
does not
existing
extend
height.
above, maybe we can make it.
Right, does not extend above
It could be lower
the
or
existing
even.
roof line.
Okay, that's the condition. Is there a motion
I'll make a motion.
to approve with that condition?
Approve with.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes.
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 Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience? There is no audience, but I have to ask anyway. Is there anyone who has a matter to bring before the board that is not on the agenda? I hear none, I see none. And it's now 25 to 11. Is there a motion? Is there a motion to adjourn?
To adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, folks.
Good night.
Night.
I feel like it's later than that. I don't know why.
All right, so we have to really think about, you're not here on August 5th.
No.
Okay.
I'm not here either.
You're not here.
I'm
He's-
putting it in my phone right now so that
We
when
don't
we're
know
here
about
on